Women and Gender in 17th Century England.
17th Century Women and the Roots of Feminism. Part 1. Mary Astell. In the previous podcast in this series, I mentioned how in 1664 Abraham Cowley addressed a woman writer with the words, "We allowed you beauty, and we did submit to all the tyrannies of it. Ah, cruel sex, will you depose us too in wit?" The question is largely rhetorical. Cowley does not really think that women were a serious challenge to male wit. After all, most women didn't receive much education at all. It was unusual for them even to gain an apprenticeship to a trade. In 1681, for example, one Mary Harrison was one of only 6 young women to be apprenticed as a draper, i.e. in the clothing trade, out of 102 new apprentices to the trade in the City of London. Her pre-printed indenture form assumed apprentices were men, so he had to be changed by hand to she, master to mastris, i.e. mistress, and so on. And yet, before the end of the 17th century, Mary Astell, often credited with being the first English feminist, was taking the idea of women challenging men in the intellectual and moral spheres perfectly seriously. In her treatise, A Serious Proposal to the Ladies for the Advancement of Their True and Greatest Interest by a Lover of Her Sex, published in 1694, she tells women that she would have you all be wits, or, what is better, wise, and outlines her proposal for women to surpass the men as much in virtue and ingenuity as you do in beauty. Her basic point is that women are denied a proper education. The cause of the defects we labour under is, if not wholly, yet at least in the first place, to be ascribed to the mistakes of our education. Women are, from their very infancy, debarred those advantages with the want of which they are afterwards reproached, and nursed up in those vices which will hereafter be upbraided to them. This lack of education, she argues, is the root cause of the weakness that men accuse women of. That, therefore, women are unprofitable to most men is not much to be regretted on account of the men, because 'tis the product of their own folly in denying them the benefits of an ingenuous and liberal education. For that ignorance is the cause of most feminine vices may be instanced in that pride and vanity which is usually imputed to us. She urges women to shake off these follies and regain our freedom, and then reveals her central proposal, which is to erect a monastery, or, if you will, we'll call it a religious retirement. The purpose of life in this monastery will be to magnify God and to love one another and to communicate that useful knowledge which, by the due improvement of your time in study and contemplation, you will obtain, and which, when obtained, will afford you a much sweeter and durable delight than all those pitiful diversions, those revellings and amusements, which now, through your ignorance of better, appear the only grateful and relishing entertainments. The choice of the word monastery is revealing. In many ways, the 16th century had been a step backwards for women, particularly with the closing of the monasteries by Henry VIII. Until then, the monasteries and convents had been the main imparters of education, and while schools were founded for boys, to fill the gap, girls and women were, to a considerable extent, left out, and, with a few exceptions, mainly among the nobility, most got less education than they had had in the late Middle Ages. Astell argues that there is no reason to deny women a decent education, saying, since God has given women as well as men intelligent souls, why should they be forbidden to improve them? She considers that the ladies, I'm sure, have no reason to dislike this proposal, but anticipates that men will resent it, to have their enclosure broke down and women invited to taste of that tree of knowledge they have so long unjustly monopolized. Nevertheless, she is convinced that women are as capable of learning as men are, and while she concedes that a smattering in learning makes both men and women vain and assuming, her aim is that women should not content themselves with merely a taste of learning, but should not rest till they obtain the substance, and then she who is most knowing will be forward to own with the wise Socrates that she knows nothing. Finally, she argues that it is also in men's interests for women to be better educated. Men, if they rightly understand their own interest, have no reason to oppose the ingenious education of the women, since 'twould go a long way towards reclaiming the men. Great is the influence we have over them in their childhood, in which time a mother has many opportunities of giving such a form and season to the tender mind of the child as will show its good effects through all the stages of his life. The concept of a monastery for women seemed too much like the old Catholic monastic system for her contemporaries, and her proposal was not acted on at that time. It was not until 1709 that she finally opened her own school. In 1697, Astell published a second part to her treatise, giving a more detailed account of what kind of education she felt women should receive, and in 1700 she published some reflections upon marriage. She wrote a number of other works, but these were mainly on religion rather than on feminist issues. In the next podcast, I'll be filling in the cultural background to Mary Astell and talking more generally about women's education during the 17th century. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a thumbs up, add a comment and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to get notice of new videos and live streams, and if you're able, please consider joining as a channel member.